What's up, everybody? You're watching the From WordPress to Statamic YouTube channel. My name is Michael. Now, before we dive in, I just want to remind you, if you're interested in buying my starter kit and you want to sign up to my email newsletter, the links for both of those things are in the description. Now let's get started. Today, I want to talk about building tables. Now, in HTML, table building can be sometimes pretty difficult depending on the nature of the data. But in Statamic, we have a way of at least starting simply to build something in the UI that's going to work really nicely for us. So let's dive in. Now, as you can see here on the page, I've got my page builder field set, and I'm already going to be referencing a different field set which has a table in it that we're going to configure together in just a second. So as you can see over here, I've got different groups of content, and in the special, I've got this table field set. So let's just go take a look at that field set and make sure we have everything that we need. So here's my table field set down here. And right now, I don't have anything in there, so let's configure it together. I'm just going to go create field, and I'm going to search for the table, and there it is. And we're just going to call it table, maybe my table or something, just to make sure that it's unique. And let's see what else we got here. So we can set some max rows and max columns if we want to be really specific about how this data is going to look. But for now, we'll just keep it to the defaults. So I'll save that, and then I'll save that as well. Now I'm going to go over to one of my other pages here. Okay, let's try the About page. Okay, now that we're editing our About page, let's come and look at that page builder component, and we'll add a new item, maybe right above the people there. So I'm going to look at the special area and for my table. And as you can see here, I've just got this button to add a row, and I can add that, and then I have another button to add a new column. So let's do that too. So now you can see I've got one row with two columns. So maybe I could say this is header 1, and this is header 2. I can add another row, and this is maybe data 1, and this is data 2, and I can tab between them. It's just a nice way to enter simple content. We're not doing anything complex here. There's no wysiwyg as part of this. It's just plain text, but it's a nice, simple way to add tabular data if it's going to be just a straightforward presentational table like this. So let me just save that. Okay, and there's my table information right there. Right before our component. So why don't we just normalize this a little bit before we carry on? Just get a div.container. Maybe give it some padding. by 16. There we go. Now we're sort of in line with everything else. Okay, so the first thing that I can do is I can just use this my table, which is the field name table. And then we have this table modifier, table. And this will output everything in sort of a plain, unopinionated table format. So if I was to look at that, you can see you've got this basic table going on there. Now, what if I wanted to do something a little bit more custom with our markup? But before we do that, let's go take a look at the documentation to see what this is actually doing for us. I'm just going to close that. Let's go over to this table field types page in the documentation. And as you can see, this is basically what we're looking at in our control panel. And you can see this is how it saves the structure of our data. And now coming down to the templating, this is basically what we're doing here. We're taking the data, and we're formatting it like a table, and we get our plain HTML output as we were just seeing. Now, much like some of our other field types, where things may be saved in an array, we can actually iterate over those things by having an opening and closing tag pair, like in this example. So we can have the opening tag there, and then the closing right there, and then everything in between is one iteration of that loop. So in this case, we've got a table row, and then we're iterating over the cells within that table row, and then you can basically parse what it is that you want to do. So let's try that out. So I'm just going to copy this here. I'll just use that little utility there. So let's copy that, and let's give it a refresh, and we basically have the same thing now. But in this case, maybe I want to format things. So maybe inside of my table data cell, I want to add a class where the padding is 4, and maybe has a background of slate 100 or something like that. And there we go. Or maybe let's make it white so we can see it on that background, white. There we go. So we've got that table cell formatted. Let's come back to the documentation. Now we can say if this is the first row, or if it's not the first, for example, then we can do some additional formatting. for example, if the first row, we want it to be, the table head, then we can do something like that. So let's try that right here. So if first, then we'll do our else, and then we'll close it off. In the if there, just format that in there, and we'll just copy that. And for the first one, we'll make sure this is a T head. T head. And then inside of that, we'll use a table row. And then instead of TDs there, we'll maybe use a TH. TH, and we'll give this maybe a font bold. Maybe here we don't want padding 2. Maybe here we don't want padding 4. Maybe we only want padding 2. So maybe let's do PX 4 and PY 2, something like that. And let's come back here and refresh. And there we go. Now we can see that we have our THs there with the font bold. And then we've got our T body there outside of that first iteration, like so. And if we wanted to do something at the end where we had like a table footer or something, we can do that as well. And we can also combine this with other fields. The example over here is saying, let's see, first row headers. Maybe we had a toggle, just like a toggle field, where we wanted to use just a sort of Boolean flag to indicate that, yes, in this particular table, we want to add our THs in the first row. Otherwise, maybe it's just plain tabular data. And so you can see if it's the first row and this thing is enabled, then you can do that. So this item here is not directly connected to the table itself, but it's another field within this field set. Okay, so that's using it within the context of our page builder. Well, what if we wanted to add it to, like, say, one of our blog posts? So let's go over to a blog. Maybe I just want to come into here. Maybe I want a table within the context of this blog post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my field sets. Yeah, we'll just leave that. And now I've got this blog content with sets here. So I've got my content. And down here, we've got our sets. So I've got some other things that I'm using in there. So I've got my blog quote and tab content and stuff. So maybe here, this is where I'll have a table. And I will use, actually, you know what? Let's link the existing one where I have my table field set, and we use the same one. We'll call this one table. Maybe there's an icon there, table. Sure. And we'll save that. Okay, so now I can come over into my blog, and I'll pick one of these guys. And then let's just do it right here. So now I've got a table available to me that'll match the same formatting and everything that I have on that other table, right available within the context of my blog. So I have that center of the column, heading 1, heading 2, heading 1, heading 2. And now for this one, I also have a file inside of my sets, so it knows to look there already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this whole table markup, starting there. I'm going to copy that into my table component right there. And so now I should be able to just visit that on the front end. And there's my data table. It's formatted a little bit differently because it says the Tailwind Pros, but you can see the markup will be basically the same as the component. So there we go. And now I have this formatable table available in my sets inside of my Bard field. And I also have it inside of my page builder. Maybe for a challenge, if you wanted to do something a little bit more complicated, you could create a new field set and do something custom where everything inside of that table is maybe a Bard field or it's some other kind of wysiwyg thing. Maybe that's a challenge for you if you wanted to come up with your own add-on for the marketplace. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and sign up for the email newsletter if you haven't already. Thanks a lot. Catch you next time.